Welcome back everybody, my name's Nick930 and this is my review for the recently released Anthem. Anthem is a shared world action role-playing adventure game that relies heavily on its javelin-based gameplay mechanics. Players will explore the ruins of a mysterious new world while fighting a large variety of enemies and upgrading their suit with more powerful abilities. While the overall concept isn't the most original idea, there's a lot to admire about the deep customization available to the player, on top of the excellent combat controls. And, while downgraded from its initial reveal in 2017, impressive visual presentation. However, the game's poor pacing, repetitive mission structure, and disappointingly small scope hurt the overall value, and make this a hard sell at its full retail price. So to kick off this review, let's start by looking at the story on offer. In Anthem, players assume the role of a freelancer, a member of an elite class of warriors who have sworn to help protect humans at Freemark from the dangers beyond the wall. But, after a rival force called the Dominion invades the city and attempts to harness an ancient power, something goes wrong, and the entire city of Freemark is destroyed, leaving behind the dangerous Heart of Rage. To reverse this devastation, the remaining freelancers launch an attack on the Heart of Rage, but are defeated, resulting in people losing faith in their once trusted freelancer warriors. The actual present-day storyline takes place several years after this failure, with the player's unnamed freelancer taking on various contracts to help make a living. But after learning that the Dominion plans to try and harness the ancient power again, the player and his or her allies are forced back into action by gathering supporters and completing increasingly more difficult missions to help protect humanity. The general concept behind the story isn't necessarily the most original, but I do appreciate the much clearer narrative direction than other titles in this genre. And I think a lot of the character performances are executed surprisingly well, aside from the lead character, whose voice seems a bit out of place at times. There's a ton of expanded lore in the world of Anthem, from various collectibles in the environment to several different characters with conversations that you can control with the occasional A or B response. While I personally wasn't all too interested in exploring every single conversation and history of this universe, the game does offer plenty for players that want to be immersed. But the most memorable aspect of Anthem isn't its story, it's the gameplay design. At first glance, Anthem's gameplay is fantastic. The controls are intuitive, the combat is designed well, and the large amount of customization to the Javelin suit loadouts provides a seemingly endless amount of interesting squad configurations. But unfortunately, after you get through the first couple hours of the game, it becomes clear just how repetitive the overall experience is. This is caused by the design of the missions themselves. There's 5 different mission types in Anthem: Critical, Agent Quests, Agent Contracts, Strongholds, and Freeplay. Critical missions are the main story-based quests. I was genuinely enjoying myself playing straight through these quests, earning slightly more powerful weapons and fighting new enemy types. But then the game's pacing came to a grinding halt about halfway through when I came across the quest Tombs of the Legionnaires. This quest requires the player to launch into the Freeplay mode and gain access to 4 hidden tombs in the open world. However, each tomb requires a set of criteria to enter, like melee killing 50 enemies or finding 10 collectibles. It absolutely destroyed the smooth pacing and took me out of the story completely. This tomb scavenger hunt should have been reserved as either an agent quest or agent contract instead. The agent quests and agent contracts are the game's optional side missions. They have no real impact on the story and are generally a good way to earn more XP and loot. Strongholds are the big cooperative-only strikes. These missions are much longer and are the most challenging available in the game, but unfortunately Anthem only has 3 of these available at launch, with more planned to release for free in the coming months. And then there's free play-based missions, which serve as a fast way to practice your skills and earn some more loot and XP while you explore the open world of the game. All missions involve following on-screen waypoints to various locations in the open world, fighting off waves of enemies, and completing mundane objectives. Here's where Anthem's gameplay gets annoying and repetitive. The objectives for almost every mission are always the same fetch quest design. You'll either need to fly around a large area collecting glowing orbs and bring them back to a single point, fly around picking up some shards and then carrying them on foot back to a single point, or stand on a designated zone while you wait for a download to complete. These objectives would have been fine had they been used more sparingly, but they seem to be the basis for almost every single mission. The open world environment looks gorgeous, but it's ultimately empty. There's occasionally some enemies to fight and some collectibles to find, but no real incentive to explore otherwise. Most of the game's missions take place in the main open world environment, but occasionally force you to travel into a special underground area, requiring a lengthy loading screen in between. This is surprising to see in a game in 2019, especially considering how small the overall open world area of Anthem is. I'm disappointed BioWare couldn't find a way to more smoothly incorporate all aspects of the game into a seamless open world, and even more disappointed in how uninspired the mission design is, especially considering how excellent the actual flight and combat mechanics are. One of the few really positive aspects of Anthem's experience comes from its tight flight and combat design. After you climb into your javelin and step out into the open world, you're immediately given the opportunity to jump off of a massive wall and begin to fly around like Iron Man. You can dive, turn, and roll to avoid enemy fire, and it feels great. I especially love the overheating mechanic, which adds an interesting balance to the gameplay. You can only fly for so long before your jets begin to overheat, and you can either land to cool them down, attempt to cool them off by diving straight down, or flying through a source of water, like a waterfall or even under the surface. This feature, when combined with the combat, helps to keep the action interesting by not ever making you feel too overpowered. The combat also feels great, with a decent variety of weapons to choose from, and a ton of different abilities that can be unlocked to make your javelin more powerful. The game lets you choose between 4 different javelins, each with their own distinct playstyle. There's the Colossus, a giant tank that comes equipped with a special shield and increased health, while also capable of equipping powerful mortars and devastating melee attacks. The Interceptor, a weaker but much faster javelin that's great for flanking enemies and targeting their weak spots. Storm, a long-range class that specializes in elemental attacks. And Ranger, which functions as a balanced mix of all playstyles. Players can choose only one of these starting off, but as they rank up, they'll unlock more javelins, and can begin customizing them with various loadouts to suit their playstyle. Weapons range from your standard assault rifles, grenades, and shotguns to more elemental-based weaponry that can be combined with a unique combo design. The combo system is incredibly important, and I feel the game does a poor job of explaining the feature. Some weapons have distinct combo capabilities that, when combined, can deal significant damage to enemies. For a combo to work, players need to first prime an enemy, which is indicated as a small circle enclosed by another circle, and then complete the combo with a detonator, represented by this 4-pronged star icon. Completing combos is not only incredibly useful in the later half of the game, but it's also required by one of the more annoying Tomb of Legionnaire objectives, so I'm surprised that this feature wasn't explained more clearly. The enemies you'll be fighting range from insectoid-based mobs called scorpions to more traditional humanoid enemies like the Scars or the Dominion. These enemies feel pretty varied at first, and there are plenty of different types to help mix up the formula, but I was disappointed in how the bosses were handled. Most of the bosses are just the same lumbering titans, with some very slight variations to their attack patterns. They typically throw incendiary balls of light or send out waves that you need to jump over, and take forever to kill, especially if you plan on playing solo. And as long as you avoid taking 2 hits in a row, you're basically invincible, as your shield will just recharge and you can never be instantly killed by one of his attacks. I ran into these guys way more often than I feel I should, and the length of the fights made it feel even more repetitive. Anthem is absolutely best played with a team of friends. You can play a vast majority of this game alone if you'd like, but everything about it greatly encourages cooperative play. You're going to want to have a good balance of different javelin types, all taking advantage of unique capabilities, while also setting up primer attacks and knocking them down with detonators. Enemies will be bullet sponges, especially in the more challenging missions, so jumping in solo will either be a long, boring grind as you slowly bring down a boss's health bar, or impossible to complete altogether. The annoying scavenger hunt objectives are also easier to deal with if each member helps out, and the overall experience just makes more sense as a team. Just be sure to play with players you trust, otherwise you might end up stuck in a downed animation waiting forever for a revive with no way to access the menus to quit. And now we get to the elephant in the room, the graphics. I've already created an in-depth comparison to what BioWare initially revealed back in 2017, and I'll be sure to link that at the end for those who are interested. But I do want to reiterate that Anthem is not a bad-looking game. In fact, I was impressed for the most part. The attention to detail in the environments and the various character models look phenomenal, and the lighting effects, while definitely not as good as the original showcase, are still on par with some of the better-looking games today. The only things I can really fault Anthem for technically is the excessive use of loading screens. Even with the game installed on a solid-state drive on my PC, I felt like I was waiting forever in between missions and even during missions for the game to load. I even ran into a few performance-related issues, especially after booting up the game and walking around the main hub area and during a small segment in a mission where the game stuttered uncontrollably. Otherwise, the game ran perfectly fine. Overall, Anthem is a bit of a mixed bag. There's a lot of untapped potential here. Honestly, the visual downgrades that I noted before are the least of this game's problems. Visually, Anthem still looks phenomenal, but boring fetch quest mission objectives and an impossibly stupid pacing choice in the middle of the game keep this experience from being one that I'd recommend for most. It's still a fun game, and I love the actual combat design, which makes up a good chunk of the gameplay. But BioWare is going to have to provide significantly more endgame content if they plan on keeping this game competitive with the likes of Destiny and The Division. But what do you guys think? Are you enjoying Anthem? If not, what would BioWare need to do in order to fix it? Let me know in the comment section, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos like this posted every week.